Bonsoir, bienvenue à notre présentation spéciale dans le cadre du Festival d'Imagination en collaboration avec Never Part et Pop Montréal. C'est un grand plaisir d'accueillir le film Strike a Pose et Kevin avec nous. And I'm gonna switch to English so that Kevin can follow us. So,
je comprends.
Tu comprends, mais je sais que t'es pas mal bon, toi. T'es pas mal bon, toi. Alors, so Kevin, thank you so much for being here. This is lovely. What we were going to do, we talked about, we're just going to have a chat, sort of chat to give the film a bit of context and also give Kevin his story in there. And the first question that I would kind of put to you is a bit of a reflection and a question at the same time. Watching this film for now the third time with pleasure.
18th.
I was struck. Oui. I was struck by, it's kind of obvious what I'm going to say, but I was struck by how we forgot how strong that moment was, how strong the early 90s were, because it was so loud that we're here, we're queer, get used to it, that it's like everything went away. But you lived through that moment, you kind of were that moment. So
it's weird to say that I was that moment, because at the time I was actually questioning my own sexuality. It wasn't like, yay, out loud and proud. I was just sort of given a free space to explore who I was. But in my experience is not everybody's experience, but at the time, there was no visibility out in the media for me to look at and go, oh, that's what gay is, or it was all stereotypes and very tiny little bits of it here and there, and it always seemed so foreign and so strange, and the culture around the LGBT community was full of fear. Everything was connected to AIDS and death and this crazed sense of morality or immorality, and it was a weird thing to question your sexuality at the time and wonder who you were and were there others out there like you and where did you belong. So the tour came along right at the right time, a bold voice for that the LGBT community is normal.
Yeah, because you use the word visibility in the film, so I know you kind of said that, but could you expand on that concept?
Visibility.
It was a particular sort of visibility, and how it was a wide-ranging visibility.
Well, it was. I mean, being a part of it, I didn't have the experience that audiences had, but it really felt like the first time that gay people were shown as normal, shown eating out, going shopping, having discussions, talking, chatting, being bitchy, being upset, whatever it was just normal, regular people things. A little heightened glamour, but but it was normal, and that just wasn't seen. Maybe in the metropolitan areas, but in Middle America and in the outreaches of South Africa and random places all over the world, they didn't have that access to a strong LGBTQ community that had had a backbone and had a history to it. There were kids in the middle of nowhere wondering who they were. And I know this because over the years I've received hundreds and hundreds of comments from messages from people saying that exact same thing. I was a little kid in some tiny rural town of Minnesota wondering what the hell's going to become of my life because I don't know who I am or if I ever am going to belong somewhere. And just putting us on camera, putting herself on camera in Truth or Dare gave people this access to say, wow, I can be successful. You'll see it in the movie. I say a little bit in the movie as well about it, but
we don't want spoilers.
I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to say exactly what I said in the movie, and you'll hear it again and go, yeah.
And there was the question of, it was a moment of pop culture. It was also a moment when voguing became part of pop culture and sort of representing the power of dance as a form of expression.
Well, voguing is so interesting in itself because it's this unique dance form that comes from the gay community. Like it's ours. It's New York and it's Harlem and all this stuff, but it's a gay dance form. There's no way around it. But to bring that out into mainstream America, it gave permission for so many to kind of explore that side. And I know there were several people that messaged me that said, I was questioning who I was, but I was able to explore my sexuality or that side of life just by going to the club and voguing, and I could do it with permission and safety because nobody was there saying, "Oh, that's gay. That's a gay dance form." It was because Madonna brought it up, and I like Madonna, so I have free license to explore that, and that was a safe space for a lot of people to be, and also a communication. Like dance is a communication, right? And it was a language that suddenly everybody was sharing. Everybody was enjoying the same thing. Everybody was, celebrating the same thing, and finding common ground. And at the time, that was rare. So it was nice to have that bridge between these two communities. Music brings the people together. Oh. Kumbaya, like it really does. In some ways, it really does. Do you want me to expand on that? Let's see.
Okay, you're saving it for the Q&A.
Oh no. What else? What would you like me to say?
Okay.
Or what? Wait, but what?
We're also kind of discussing the notion of part of this whole thing is outing as a form of advocacy, and it's a gray zone.
It's a very gray zone. Yes.
Gray zone. Just your sort of thoughts on that, because you lived through that moment.
Yeah, well, I mean,
perhaps a bit of a context for.
Well, what you're touching on is, our lawsuit with her over the movie, where she didn't pay us for the movie, though it was in our contracts to be paid a certain amount of money. Attached to that contract was another side of it, which was for Gabriel, who's since passed away, who sued for forcibly being outed, basically. And they had told him directly to his face, I was standing right there, anything you don't want to be in the movie won't be in the movie. And then he asked for the kissing scene to be taken out. She said no, and she said, this will be the best lesson you've ever learned in your life. Yeah, which, it's a hard pill to swallow, and after all these years, and so many people coming to me and saying, oh, that kiss was amazing, and it was really hot, and I saw these guys kissing, and it was okay, it was great, and, I felt like, wow, there's, it's normal to like that, and there was a cost, though, the cost was my best friend, and his well-being, and his boyfriend and his boyfriend's son, his boyfriend's son's family, who then at school he was getting, bullied and verbally abused. There's costs to being forcibly outed. His grandmother found out by watching the previews for the movie on TV. Oh, there you are kissing this other guy on TV, surprise. All these years later, it's hard to underestimate the sort of positive impact that has had, the kiss has had. And I know now he would be proud of it. He would be. He really would be. And time has passed, and what cost does a message have? What is it worth? What is the price of it? So, outing as advocacy, it's hard to balance. Whose side are you on? I like now I feel like I'm more on Madonna's side. Maybe you should have gotten over it, but that was not her call to say. That was not her call to make that choice for him, especially when she had promised him that she wouldn't. Yeah. Or at least, you know what I would have liked? I would have liked if she had come to him and said, look, this will be the best lesson you've ever learned in your life. Let me support you in this. Let's do this together. It's us. I'm going to support you through this. You're going to be outed. Because now, back then, it was a little different. To be out and an entertainer was not a safe place. Usually it meant the end of your career. To be out and gay and HIV positive, you wouldn't even talk to you. Nobody disclosed their status until they were already dead. For real, and even look at Ellen, years later after all this. She had a hit TV show. She comes out and blam, she's off the air. It wasn't a safe place to be. So for her to sort of take that into her own hands and say, look, you're out, you're gay, HIV positive, yay! And then sort of, kick him off into the wind, I thought was a little irresponsible. If I look back at that would be my main issue with it, is that she should have been more responsible in terms of supporting him for living that life that she wanted him to have. Because the message is true, be out and proud and loud.
But like I said at first, we forget. we forget that it was not so easy.
Different time.
Different time.
Different time, not easy.
Exactly. We're about to start the movie. Would you want to say a few words of introduction?
Oh, goodness. Let's just say it's been the biggest and greatest gift of my life to have this movie come out, honestly. And not just that, yay, we're in the movie, but in the sense that it gave me this family back that I kind of didn't remember that I had and wasn't sure that was still around. And it's lovely to know that I'm not alone. And these guys I can share anything with. We don't always get along, really. But just like any family, we always know that it's about love. And being able to travel with this movie has been one of the most rewarding experiences, because in the pop realm, you never know if anything you're doing is going to make any impact or make any difference for anybody. It seems like just fluff, right? And for all these years, I've sort of dismissed every compliment I ever got about Madonna because it was always about her. And being able to see that just being ourselves in Truth or Dare, and being ourselves on stage, and sort of out and loud and proud, just being visible like that had an impact on others that was positive and gave people hope. And that's all you can hope for in your life. And to be able to meet the people that had that impact on, even better. So, so enjoy the movie, and it's in high def, so be very gentle. And I'm aware that I don't say that much in the movie, but some of it is because of the lawsuit, and I know they didn't want to sort of step on those issues. But I will freely answer every and any question, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to. So please stick around afterwards for the Q&A.
I want to welcome everyone, and Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Sans trop never apart. Charlie, thank you again for bringing Kevin here. Let's have a round of applause for that. So we're going to conduct the Q&A, and following we have a wonderful dance number and some Vogue dancing, so I hope you stick around. To start off, Kevin, I want to say thank you. For me and my generation, so many gay men felt validated seeing you guys. There was finally gay people that were cool in a movie.
Cool is never the word I would attribute to myself.
Well, you guys were cool. Like, we wanted to be
Thank
like,
you.
You know what I mean? So it was sort of like the opening of those gates of like queer acceptance in so many ways. So, I mean, to me, I think that's really cool.
It's weird to be acknowledged for something where you're just sort of being yourself on camera. It's like going to the coffee shop and suddenly it's like, wow, you changed my life. And I'm like, well.
And I'll have almond with that coffee. Yay. Now, I mean, I've seen a bunch of the interviews you've done regarding the film, and a lot of people have said and stated that, Madonna stole Vogue from the gay black culture of New York. What do you feel about that?
Well, I always call bullshit on that. I mean, it's just that if she was truly culturally appropriating Vogue from the Harlem Ball scene, she would have just used it and chosen whoever she wanted. But she actually took the people that were originating. I can't say they're originators because they really started way back in the 50s and 40s, even probably at its earliest. But Jose and Louis were really vanguards in terms of transforming what was mainly a presentational sort of dance into something that was really an art form and a dance form in itself, and took it beyond sort of just walking and looking pretty into something that was really extraordinary and full of technique, actually. So I don't think. I feel like she did it the best justice that she could by handing it to the people that were at the forefront of it. And the people that are going to bring that sort of art form to the forefront of and mainstream culture are going to be superstars like that. So it has to be commercial in some way. So maybe it's not as underground as it really is in the ball, but it's the best, most palatable form for the art form to be handed to the mainstream.
What was your favorite part about being in Truth or Dare and on the Bland Ambition Tour? I mean, I'm sure there's many.
The Bland Ambition Tour?
It's blonde.
My favorite part of being in the movie, it's gonna sound weird, but my favorite part is just that I have this record of like home video of our most amazing experience of our life, that it's just there. I remember every moment there. When I watch it, it's not like I'm watching some abstract thing. I'm literally like, oh, I remember that moment. Oh, that's fun. Wasn't that great back in high school? It feels like that.
Right. Cool, Charlie?
Voguing is declaration.
I love it. And go. Go. I think we had a little discussion about this earlier, and part of one of the things that I found so wonderful about voguing and what she brought with voguing to mainstream culture is that voguing is it's, at its heart, it's a declaration of power. It's a declaration of beauty and ownership of who you are, no matter who you are, what race you are, what sex you are, what sexuality you are. It's a declaration, I am fierce, I own this, I am powerful, I'm beautiful, no matter what anybody says. No matter what anybody says. And it's we take it for granted sometimes, that's a very powerful thing to say, especially back then in that environment, where it was really taking ownership of oneself. And I think that empowered so many people, just by stepping in, even in that fantasy moment, at a dance club, it empowered them in their everyday lives to then own that in their own lives, like out in the public. So the impact of that on LGBT relations and activism and owning one's identity, I think was incredible. It's hard to underestimate it, I think, really.
Agreed.
I definitely agree. I mean, how have you sort of seen within the 25 years, I mean, obviously there's been a revolution with Vogue culture again. Like, how is your take on that? Like seeing like, what could be our kids basically?
Well, this is my opinion. I'm not an expert, but this is my opinion.
Well, I would call you an expert.
What I notice for, if you see Paris is Burning, go see Paris is Burning if you haven't. You'll see that it was there was a struggle. There was fear, there was danger, and they were joining into these houses for protection, for safety, for support, out of necessity even. And I don't think that at some point, beautifully, that danger has sort of dissipated. I mean, there's still always danger. There's always danger. But that real fear of your safety is sort of dissipated. And the new Vogue culture, the reason why it's gone from I can be a supermodel, because I'm not represented in media as a supermodel. My race, my sexuality is not represented out where I see them, but I can declare that for myself that I'm a supermodel. It went from that to showing off. Spinning around, death drops. Like all this showing off, it's a totally different approach. I mean, voguing is showing off, but in a sense it's aspirational. New Wave Vogue is very much about showing off and power, and I'm gonna be fierce and twirl and spin to the ground, and that's about, you know who you are. You know who you are. You can show off your power. You can show off your strength. It's gone from being this sort of, internal, like I'm cool, to I am powerful. And that's a wonderful transition, I think, that we should all celebrate.
I agree. Yeah, I love all your expressive ways of communicating that to our
I
audience.
lived in Italy for 2 years. Everything's with the hands.
Not to take it away from all of that, but you've worked with many other artists as well. Why don't you brag?
Well, I mean, it's funny that this particular moment in my career became the sort of identifying moment, and that so many people related to it. Because for me, it's like it's one little half a year or year in my life, and it's like I was working nonstop since then, even up until now. I mean,
Just a couple.
let's see. Well, let's see. Right after Madonna, I started working with Michael Jackson as his associate choreographer. I did Black and White and Blood on the Dance Floor, and Will You Be There?
Amazing.
I did Janet Jackson, Whitney Houston, David Bowie, Elton John, Beyonce, Gaga, Britney, Rihanna, whatever.
I think
That-
that
20 movies,
was a round of
60
applause.
videos. But see, I mean, they're all just gigs. That's the thing. That's I love all the people that I work with. I'm so fortunate to have been just totally by chance, really, to be thrown into this world of fantasy and fun, where I get to create new images and work with really talented people and learn from really talented people all the time. And in the beginning, I didn't even really want it. I just did it because it paid me. I mean, that sounds really just greedy, but no, I had no money. I was broke on the street. Not on the street. That's not, I can say that. I was living on the corner of Hoover and those of you who live in Los Angeles, on the corner of Hoover and Alvarado, which if you know where that was, you don't want to be there. And I had people shooting up in my basement, and my living room had no floor, literally. It was a hole down to the basement, and it was it was not the best scene. I would, a couple dollars would have been really good. Yeah, I did it because I had been dancing the whole time when I was supposed to be traveling with a friend who didn't never get his money together, and fortunately. And it became my life because other people believed in me more than I believed in myself. And they saw in me a talent that I didn't know I had. They saw I've always had a drive and I've always been competitive, but I never thought that being an entertainer or doing something that I love could be a way of life and my profession and my joy. And I'm so grateful for all of those people, especially Vincent Patterson, who was the choreographer of this amazing tour, who also taught me that movement is not just movement. Movement is a conversation, and it's dialogue, and it's a story, and you can share yourself, and you can tell others about you. You can talk about life in your movement, and it doesn't have to be just saying, I'm sexy and hot. You can comment on everything in your life and give you life. And that's why I continue doing it all these years, is because of that knowledge that my dance gives me my life. And I get to do it on a wonderful big stage where lots of people
Awesome. Back to Strike a Pose. How was it being reconnected with your brothers, basically?
God, it was sort of the biggest resolution of my life that I could possibly imagine. I had pushed it way into the background, that whole experience. Even though it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, I really pushed it way into the background.
Why did you push it
back? Because of the lawsuit, first of all.
Right.
I never wanted people saying, you stood on her shoulders and you used her and blah, 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 blah. Like, that is the most horrific thing for me to hear, because that's not my intention at all. It never was. And I just felt like I was standing up for my rights. It was in my contract. I want to be, I'm an activist. I want to get paid, but I'm an activist in all senses. And I have been, on behalf of dancers' rights. Like, it was in my contract. You owe me that. As a business person, I've learned from you, Madonna. Like, you taught me everything I know. And how better to honor you than to stand up to you?
Right.
So, I did that, and I have no regrets because it's allowed me to be an activist for dancers' rights for the past 27 years. Like, nonstop. I step up on sets and say things when they need to be said, when people are being abused or our health is being abused or endangered. I've gotten music videos covered under the union and tours covered under the unions for protections for everybody and working conditions. Like, it's given me a voice that I do not regret anything that I did.
And so following up with that, what are your favorite moments about reconnecting with the other dancers?
Yeah.
And your favorite part about,
So in terms of turning it, like bringing it all back around, back to the question. Thank you. Up on my tangent. It's, again, I pushed it into the background, and I took her off my resume. I didn't talk about her unless people brought her up. I even went and I auditioned for her again, several times. I didn't know. Yeah. I did, because I was like, this is not on me. I'm not going to put this on me. I didn't say fuck off to her. Like,
what tours, and did she recognize you?
It's Reinvention, I think. Well, she wasn't there at the time. Her management vetoed me because of the lawsuit before. But the director is an old friend of mine. Her manager is an old friend of mine. We played rock band together. I mean, it's like
even rock band.
Even rock band. People get confused about relationships and things, and it's like, I know everybody on the tour. It's just weird that we're not talking. It's strange. But seeing them all again just really reminds me about the power of love, and the power of friendship. And it reminded me how valuable people are in our lives that have been there for a long time, because part of me lives in them. And when we got together, the second we got together, like, suddenly we were 20 again. And that 20-year-old self lived in each of us. And it's like the power of all of us together, like, recreated each of us as that young self, and suddenly we felt energized and empowered and happy, and all those memories came flooding back about the joy of being on tour and the giddiness of sharing that with each other. That was that moment. And after 25 years of not seeing each other, you wonder if that's real. You wonder if that really happened. And then you get together, and it's like, blam, it's right there in your face.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Now, you've been able to tour with this film to many festivals, and what have sort of been the highlights of that?
Oh, gosh. The highlights of that. Well, being in Vogue Italia, that was a highlight. That's a highlight. That was a highlight. Let's see. What's not to be amazed about? It's the overwhelming communication from the people that see this movie that we had an impact on them. It's this overwhelming affirmation and acknowledgement about a positive impact. I get to hear individual stories. Oh, here's a funny story. It's a tangent. Here's one of my favorite stories that came out of this. So this guy tells me that he had a total crush on me growing up as a teenager, and that he would watch the movie over and over and over again in his room. Like over and over and over again. I was like, this is getting really creepy. I get it, over and over, okay. And then one day, his father walks into his room without knocking, and there he is with Truth or Dare on freeze frame with my picture on it, and he's kissing the TV. And that's how he came out to his dad.
I love that story. Other than that, what other kind of legacy do you hope Strike a Pose leaves?
I think Strike a Pose is a story of hope, ultimately, and courage. And also being a survivor. I mean, Salim is such an inspiration. Like Carlton, I mean, I'm so honored to be a part of this group of heroes, I think ultimately what I hope this movie shares with people is that often what you think is your greatest weakness or failing or failure, when shared or owned, can become your greatest strength. I mean, truly, it's a powerful message for anybody who's dealing with anything. And when Salim told us, I was like, I couldn't believe he didn't say something earlier. Like, what's not to share? Why are you even suffering over that 30 years later? We're all here for you and we love you, and why would you put yourself through that? So I just hope that this gives people courage and hope.
What or who inspires you to create, to keep going, to work on new projects?
That's a continual recreation. Like, I'm constantly looking for that. Why do I do what I do? And it's the times I turn away from creating and entertaining and dance and those sort of creative arts are the times where I'm most lost in my life. I keep going because I find truth in those moments. I find heart. I rediscover love in those moments. Who inspires me? That's such a grand statement. I'm so inspired by just small things. It's people, it sounds so kumbaya, but people saying thank you, or people like giving out on the street, or just, it's little moments. I'm not I'm not like, oh yay, Bjork. I mean, I love Bjork, thank you, she does inspire me, but but it's not like I have to say Bjork is my big inspiration, because it's not like I'm out there looking for every day to get inspiration.
She was just here in Montreal, actually.
I look for people that challenge what is. Yeah, I look for people that challenge what is, and that are unafraid. You know what? I'm. Because I can't say unafraid, because there's always fear. It's just how you respond to fear. It's about courage, to stand up in the face of fear. I look for people that do things that are bold, that perhaps I wouldn't even feel comfortable doing myself. Like, ooh, that's outside my comfort zone. That's inspiring.
Right. Push yourself out of there, and
yeah. And when I just watched the movie The Coquettes the other day. Love, right? Go see it if you have a chance somewhere. And it reminded me, wow, I feel like such a straight-laced, nerd. They were crazy.
Tell people a little bit about who the Coquettes
So the Coquettes are this sort of band of psychedelic, drug-taking drag queens that, and it just became a group in San Francisco by being asked to sort of do a pre-movie performance at the Castro Theater or something, one of those theaters. And they went on stage and were all crazy and naked and on LSD and dressed up like crazy people, right? And it was so popular. They started doing shows and more, like bigger shows. They went to New York, and it was a big disaster because they were expecting something really planned, and it wasn't. It's like, I'm on shrooms and I'm giving you a show. That's what they were about. But, but the bottom line of all of that was that it was about freedom. There were men, there were women, there were gay, there were straight, there were drag queens, it was all over the board, and it was just total freedom. And I don't know that there's this freedom anymore right now.
That was a specific freedom.
Very specific freedom.
You know, San Francisco in that era of change
Yeah.
and many, love and all of that. I mean, they did work with some, high-profile drag queens like Sylvester and Divine, but they were definitely like on that freedom train.
But it was the step, you know what, it wasn't even just like, I need to be free to be myself. It wasn't that. It was like freedom to think outside the norms of society. Like, they all lived in communes. They were all taking advantage of sort of disability to get along, but their whole days were just spent creating crazy outfits and
tripping
and like talking about love and society and the world. Like, they really stepped out of what is considered the norm for a community.
60s, 70s.
And this is 60s, 70s, and I don't know that anybody in this era is comfortable. I mean, some of you were probably there. But I get inspired by that, actually, because that shows me, like, wow, we've gone a long way, but we've also come back a far way. Like, it's a give and take.
What are you currently working on?
Well, I sang under the name That Rogue Romeo. It's a bit on hold because I'm writing a memoir, and yes.
You're being busy.
Yes, I'm being busy, lots of creative things. And I also shot a movie with my father a year and a half ago that I'm editing.
Wow.
It's a documentary called Great Walls. I shot an NBC pilot that I can't really talk about, but that's coming up next year. And I choreograph fashion shows and teach occasionally, but mostly I'm doing this.
I love that we're doing this.
Me too.
Okay. Charlie, do you have any other questions before I open things up to the audience?
I'm going to forfeit my question so that we can hear from our audience.
I hope you have some questions, audience.
Ask anything. I'm an open book.
And if so, raise your
People get all
hand
nervous about asking
because it's hard to see you. Is there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Hi. First of all, well, thank you so much because I come from Mexico and I come from one of those small villages where seeing Truth or Dare in a big cinema was a huge thing. So yes, I mean, thank you. That's it. But other than that, what was the inspiration to make this movie? How did it come, and how did you approach it at first?
Well, I can't take credit for this because this isn't my movie. I'm a subject of the movie.
You're the
but
star.
I'm a star. This was Ryer Zwan and Esther Gould, these wonderful Dutch filmmakers. Ryer is a journalist on the TV station there, and his experience, I'm going to speak for him, when he was 11, his mom brought him to go see Truth or Dare, and he loved it. And he got the VHS, he watched it over and over and over again, and his sensation was that he felt more free to be himself. He felt more free, that there was freedom to be whoever he chose to be. That's his experience of the movie. And he lived with that for many years as an inspiration for himself and who he became. Well, years later, now that he's a journalist with TV, he was in these same social circles with this other documentary filmmaker, Esther. And she's done some really beautiful, beautiful work. And they were talking about it at one of these little parties one night. And he brought it up and said, is this a good idea? And she was like, oh my God, it's an amazing idea. And I've had the exact same experience. As a straight woman, this gave me permission to be myself and more free to be whoever I wanted to be. And when they started asking their friends, they all had the exact same experience. Surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, I don't know. And they took a leap of faith and contacted us. They followed us for like 2 years on social media to see if there was a story. And then they contacted us and reached out to see if we were interested. Of course, we've gotten lots of sort of inquiries over the years, and usually they're sensationalist inquiries about, oh, I need to know what Madonna's underwear looks like, although we all know because it's on the outside. And but they said, we're Dutch and we're coming to America and we want to meet with all of you. in like 4 months or 6 months or something. And then they showed up on the dates they said they were going to. So the integrity made a big difference. And then we met with them, and their point of view was very compassionate and very obviously not about the sensationalism about Madonna and talking about her. We're not some sort of context for her. She's a context for us. And they definitely wanted to tell our stories. I think Slam's, like his prerequisite for even participating in the movie was that the story was about us and not just about her, because that movie's already been made. I said yes almost immediately because once I heard their side of things and how really honest and full of integrity they were, because I was tired of being quiet about it. I was tired of sort of people dragging me in social media and talking shit about me and the lawsuit without knowing anything about why I did it or what happened to it, because all that's left in public was, you know, the press, which is a lot of bullshit. And yeah, that was really the main reason I started, was because like I'm just tired of being quiet about this. People, you know, throwing insults on my page and literally trying to tear down my pages like on the internet. I was like, come on, you guys, like how childish do you have to be? Like, we don't know a situation.
Well, it's a good way of clarifying all of that.
Yeah, it's a good way of clarifying, and I also knew that these guys meant a lot to me and that I would love to see them again. And I always wondered what they really thought, you know. Here's an aside, because most of you don't know this, but when we did the Truth or Dare like interviews, like outside we were playing Truth or Dare. It wasn't set up like that. We just started playing Truth or Dare. It wasn't set up. Well, we moved from that outside space into an inside space, like a big round table. And one of the things we did is towards the end of the tour, we all went around one by one and said, what do you think of this person? Like every single person.
Oof.
Yeah. These are some bold, honest motherfuckers. It was very eye-opening, and I learned a lot. But one of the things that came up, like when Jose was like, "So Kevin, I don't like how you are. I don't like anything about you. If I never see you again, I don't even care." Like, that was his thing. He was really mad at me that day, and
why? Dare I ask?
Well, I think it comes, when I really think about it, it comes down to that I think he was sort of having this thing with this guy that was sort of around with us here and there, and at one point that guy sort of asked me, like, over for a moment. Not that anything really happened, but it was just like that moment where it was just like, mine! You know, and I was like, I didn't know etiquette or anything at that point. I wasn't like...
Territorial
It was
stuff.
territorial stuff. It was like, you don't cross that line, you know? I had no idea. I'm sure it was all my fault, and I'll take full ownership of that. But yeah, so like years go by, I didn't think to, like, I have to track him down or find him because of that moment. You know, like, I guess he hates me, and I'm not going to change that. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. I wanted to say I love you. I wanted to say I'm so grateful for everything that all of you have given to me in my life, and that how much you inspired me, how impressionable I was, how little I knew, and 25 years later, I am so aware of how much you all mean to me, and I love you all. That's why I did the movie, because that was important to me.
Awesome. Yay. Is there any other questions? Are we shy? Are we a shy audience? Oh, hi. We're going to walk all the way.
Does that mean that the reunion scene that was in the film was filmed before the individual sort of interviews with everybody?
Oh, no, the individual, like, they shot all of our interviews completely separately. We had no idea what anybody said. We didn't even really know what they were going for in the movie overall. And the only thing I knew was that they had requested that we don't talk to each other.
So that reunion, that was the first
Oh, that was real.
and you didn't know what the others had.
That was real. We didn't know if they were mad at us. Like, you know, I had no idea, like, what was going to come at us, come at me even. I mean, but it was wonderful. I did see Carlton quite a lot because we live in the same city and we go to the same gym. And Louis, I've seen many times. We also did the Birdcage together. I was yummy. We did the Birdcage together. That was really fun. But I hadn't seen him in like 8 years, and Oliver I hadn't seen in 15 years. Salim I saw once in a corner of a club. Like, I think it was really high, and I was like, hey. And then that was
club?
I think it was like Temple, and no, it wasn't. Mars? Way back. Tunnel? Sound Factory? It's all a blur. Yeah, but yeah.
The club, we were talking about this earlier, the club scenes. I mean, there was such a huge club scene in the 90s, and it's changed.
Well, it seemed like back then it was like this hotbed of creativity.
Yeah.
Like you come out and you express yourself and you dress crazy. And the 80s were a lot like that too, with, you know, this sort of androgynous and, you know,
New wave.
New wave,
Yeah.
loved it. You know, it's dying, it's disappearing. You know,
I mean,
as
I believe a lot of it's social media. You don't have
Yeah.
to go to a club to meet someone.
Grindr
What are the
and
other
Tinder
factors?
and-
Yeah.
yeah,
What happened to the clubs?
I know.
Everywhere. I mean, it's a global thing.
There's nowhere to go anymore. God damn it. Well, now, when you're getting all crazy or looking crazy, whatever, it's all documented.
Right. It's all about that.
Everyone's like, oh, I don't know what to
Instagram.
be. Yeah, I think back then there was a level of anonymity and like, I can do whatever I want, be whoever I want, nobody cares. And now it's like, I can be whoever I want, but you're going to be on camera. And everybody's going to see it. Yeah, it might be a big part of it. I think being able to express yourself without being constantly photographed has some value.
Any other questions? Yes. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about Oliver's transformation. In Truth or Dare, he came across very homophobic. And in Strike a Pose, he talks about how he became very close to you and Gabriel. And I wanted to know if you could speak a bit about your personal experience of this transformation.
I knew I liked sex with guys, but I didn't know how to have a relationship with one, or if that was even a thing. So I feel like he felt more comfortable with me, and I never attacked him. I never made fun of him for his clothes, for his matching purple and red jackets and shoes. Like, I mean, there was a lot to make fun of. But I was like, that's Oliver, good for you, go for it, you know. I think it was just unconditional love, you know. I never showed him anything but sort of acceptance and love no matter what. And I would go to hip hop clubs with him that I don't think necessarily like Jose and Louis and them would go. But I shared his world, as did Gabriel. And we never made fun of him. And I think that was why he sort of leaned towards us. And over the years, you know, I never turned my back on him. You know, there was a moment, I didn't see him for 15 years because one night we were in Vegas, we went out and had a good time, and then I took off in the car back to Los Angeles, and he got in his car and had a giant car wreck and like broke a leg and huge like accident, and drunk, and I didn't know any of this, but then he just never contacted me again for 15 years. Well, I think we spoke on the phone a little bit before then, but I didn't know any of that happened, and that was when all that stuff went down, where he had to stop drinking. His girlfriend at the time, who's his wife now, told him to stop drinking. And he said, okay, and he did. And then he had seizures. Like, he almost died. He went to the hospital, he was in a coma. That's not in the movie, but like, he went through it. When they're talking about his episodes, you know, it's because he decided, he's like, this is not my life and I want a better life than this. I'm gonna stop drinking just like you say, because I love you. And so he did, but he did it a little, you know, cold turkey. And then his Bell's palsy and all this stuff, and you know, his weight and stuff is not because he eats at the cafe. It's not because of that. It's because of all the steroids he took to help with all of the seizures and all of this. So yeah, he's trying really hard. He's lost like 50 pounds since January.
Oh, good. Yay. Is there another question? Maybe say yes, if there is. Yes.
Do you know if she has seen it?
Good question.
Who's she?
You mean Shara? Well, you know, I am pretty sure she has. I know she's had the link since March when we did Tribeca. Her publicist, Liz Rosenberg, came to our publicist very excited and had seen the link, and she's like, I love the movie. It's fantastic. I'm sending it to her right now, which is very surprising because Liz hated me after the lawsuit. Yeah. But she loved the movie. She loved the movie, and we sent her the link and everything. And she was on tour at the time, and at some point in between there, she sent out some tweet that said, "It's time to strike a pose," in all caps. And I take that as like, "Hey, I saw the movie," because she doesn't usually push other people's projects. Just like when she said, "It looks like Rain" with Nikki and Donna and their remake of Rain. You know, they're like little, you know, hints, but she wouldn't push it. I haven't heard anything responses. I should probably reach out to my friends and see if she's seen it. But I do know she has some little bit of fondness for Truth or Dare. Certainly, she forced her entourage and dancers to watch Truth or Dare last October, because she was like, "You bitches better get along.
Learn it.
Learn it. Look, this is what it's like to be a family and get along. You have your fights, but get the fuck along." And she forced them all to sit there and watch it. And then she went to the 25th anniversary thing in New York too. So I like to think she has some fond memories, just like we do.
If we're done with questions, we're going to have a wonderful Vogue dance, and we've got DJ Booty Spoon ready to turn things out, so we want you to strike a pose. Kevin's going to be around to do some hellos and Instagram selfies and that kind of thing. I think. We didn't ask.
No. As long as we have good lighting.
Yeah. We can work that out. So again, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
DJ Hat!